إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who guided us to Islam. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High, the one who gave us health. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for placing us in a situation of peace and security. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for bringing us to His house on the day of Jumu'ah. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us an understanding on some level of Him Azza wa Jalla. My respected elders, brothers and sisters, friends, as we get settled into the new year, as we start to embrace the challenges that we face, be they at work, be they at school, be they at home, we face challenges throughout the year, but especially in this part of the year, the winter, the beginning of the year. You know, that time after the holiday season is still usually dark and overcast outside. Alhamdulillah, it's sunny today. But usually this time of year it's overcast outside. When we leave for work in the morning, it's dark. By the time we come home, the sun is already set. People are sick around this time of year, so they're absent from work, they're absent from school. So it can give us a down feeling, it can give us a hollow feeling inside. And turning on the news doesn't help. We see the situation of our brothers and sisters, be they in this country or around the world. And we take all of this in, and it can make a person feel down. It can make a person feel depressed. And it creates an environment, unfortunately, of negativity. So how do we interact with this depression? How do we interact with this environment of negativity? For that we turn to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And in it we see that we are taught to always have a positive outlook. We are taught not to look for the light at the end of the tunnel, but we are taught to look for the light where we're standing right now. We're taught to look for the silver lining on the cloud. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. That it may be that you find something that you dislike, but that in reality there is in it goodness for you. There is a famous poem attributed to the pious predecessors of the past. And in it, he says that one day, I'll summarize it. One day, he says, I left Jumu'ah, and I found that my slippers were missing. Now this is a situation that unfortunately we encounter from time to time, especially if you wear Adidas slides. But he says, I came out and that my slippers or my shoes, they were missing, someone else had taken them, inshallah, an accident. And he says that I was very upset as I was walking down the stairs out of the masjid. I was very upset that my shoes were gone. Now I had to walk home, walk back to work barefoot. And he says that there I saw a person who had no feet walking down the stairs. So he was crippled trying to walk down the stairs. And he says, immediately I looked at that and I apologized to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Immediately I asked for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? For making such a big deal about my lost slippers. When this person who had been praying Salatul Jumu'ah in my vicinity in the same area as me, and he had to do it without feet. He had to live his entire life without the blessing of feet. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the light is not necessarily at the end of the tunnel. Inshallah, there's light there too, but that there is light right where we are standing right now. But we have to search for that light. It's not necessarily going to be apparent all the time. He didn't find his slippers at that moment, but he felt better. He asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. He wasn't upset about that fact anymore. Why was it? Because he knows that he's not in control of bringing back his slippers. Same thing with all of us. Inshallah, if someone takes our shoes, they'll realize that they have the wrong shoes and bring them back next time. But in that moment, he had no control over getting his shoes back. But he is in control of the way he reacts to this news. He is in control of his attitude. And that, my dear brothers and sisters, is my message for today. That we cannot necessarily control the situation around us. We can't control the environment around us. We can't control the weather. We can't control what people say to us. By and large, we can't control the political landscape. Yes, we can reach out to our representatives, but we can't flip our fingers and change it. But what we can do is change the way that we perceive what's around us. We can change the way that we understand the environment around us. We can change the way that we interact with the changes around us. Our deen gives us hope. If someone takes the incidences that take place in the world today, incidences that affect both our deen, both our religion and our dunya, our life in this world, and then they open Kitab al-Fitan, Kitab al-Malahim, if they open the books of trials, the books of wars before the end of time, in the books of hadith, and they read them, not only are they very interesting, not only are they very eye-opening, but we can see the manifestation of these hadith all around us. It's as if they were pulled from yesterday's headlines. And sometimes people will text you, a chain of hadith on WhatsApp. But what is the purpose of sharing these hadith? What is the purpose of the Prophet ﷺ giving us these warnings? That when he says, before the hour this will happen, that the hour will not occur until that happens. What is the purpose of sharing this? How many of the people in the past centuries saw the actual manifestation of these hadith? Not that many. But what was the purpose of them sharing these signs? What was the purpose of them passing down these signs so that we could hear them? These signs, a good bunch of which we can see now and some of which are yet to come. The purpose of reading Kitab al-Fitan, the purpose of reading Kitab al-Malahim, the purpose of attending a lecture on the signs of the hour is not to make us leave feeling depressed, is not to make us leave feeling overwhelmed, not to make us feel hopeless, throw in the towel, game over, it's the end of the day, the world is going to end, there's nothing I can do about it. That's not the purpose. That's not why the Prophet ﷺ shared these with us. Instead, it's so that if you and I live to see that witness, to see that overwhelming time, if you and I live to witness that difficult time, that time when the Prophet ﷺ said that the leaders will become corrupt, that the liars will be regarded as the truthful, that the truthful will be regarded as the liars, that the master will be born to the slave, that time when trustworthiness will not exist, that if we live in that era when all of this occurs, not to lose hope, not to feel depressed, not to feel at a loss, but that when you go back and read the books of hadith, that we know that my messenger and your messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam a millennium and a half ago prophesied every single one of these things. That the manifestation of these signs in and of itself is a proof of the trustworthiness of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That what is happening now is only part of the script. That it occurs only by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That it's not something that should startle us. It's not something that should cause us to lose hope. And it's unfortunate that it's very common that people, experience everything that's happening around us. They experience the negativity. And then people say that, I'm sick and tired of hearing of Muslims on the news. I'm sick and tired of feeling attacked, of feeling scapegoated. That 1.2 billion people are scapegoated for the crimes of one individual. So some people hear all this, and they say this and they want to call it quits. They say, I can't stand it anymore. I can't be a part of a religion that comes with all of this baggage. And all this negativity, it pushes those who are already on the verge out of the fold of Islam. But the way to cope with all this negativity is not to jump out of the fold of Islam. The way to cope with all this negativity is not to go on a news binge. It's not to go on a YouTube binge. It's not to stream Netflix for hours and hours. Instead, open up a book of hadith. Instead, read a book on the signs of the hour and realize that it's all part of the script. That the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this, that the pen wrote this on the tablet before the creation of the heavens and the earth. But what am I supposed to do? What are we supposed to do in a situation like this? Not to get affected, not to think that it's all over, and to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have tawakkul in Allah, that there is a wisdom, that there is a hidden plan behind everything that's taken place. To trust in the one who is the third of the two in the cave. To trust in the one who placed a baby in the womb of a woman who had worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, her whole life had been dedicated to the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that when she went back to her people, she was told she had to fast from speaking. That she couldn't speak up and defend herself when her people accused her, that she had to point to her son. Trust in the one who made that baby speak, alayhi salam. To know that all the harm that is occurring to ourselves and to our brothers and sisters, to know that all the mudslinging, all the false accusations, that there has to be some khair, that there has to be some goodness that comes out of all of this. To have the attitude that I want to be someone who does well. I want to be someone who comes out of all this as a winner. I don't want to come out as a loser. I don't want these crises to push me from the fold of Islam. That when we see these things occur around us, that we learn from the Prophet ﷺ, that he was such an optimistic person. We all know the hadith, so I'll summarize it. That the Prophet ﷺ told us that when you see the hour coming, that even if you have a little bit of time left, don't even waste a minute. Do something beneficial with that time that we have left. Do something even if it's planting a tree. The Prophet ﷺ is telling us that if you know the world is going to fall apart, if you know that that moment that the trumpet is going to be blown in just minutes or is going to be blown in just seconds, don't waste those few minutes, those few seconds that we have left. Do something good on the way out. That time when you know that the mountains are going to crumble to dust, that the seas are going to boil, that the stars are going to fall, that all creation is going to be wiped out, do something beneficial. The Prophet ﷺ is not talking about the death of one person, is not talking about the death of one family, is not talking about the destruction of one nation. The Prophet ﷺ is literally talking about the destruction of the entire universe. And he tells us at this time, don't lose hope, do something good on your way out. Do something good with the time that you have left. Don't be agonized about what is going to come. Focus on what you can do right now, what you can do right then in that moment to improve your life or to improve someone else's life. But the logical answer, why would I plant a tree at that time? If I know the world is going to end in 5 minutes, that tree is still going to be a little tree. It's not going to grow to be a big tree and give fruit and give benefit to me, be a source of sadaqah jariyah for me. But we learn from this that we are not responsible for the result. That the Prophet ﷺ taught us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects from us effort. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet ﷺ, وَمَا عَلَيْكَ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ, that upon the Prophet ﷺ, the hearts are in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That all the Prophet ﷺ can do is deliver the message. All he can do is put forth 100%. And beyond that, the rest is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That same criteria applies to us. Our criteria is effort, not results. That is the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That when we go through fitan, that we learn and we look at the hadith, that we don't say, oh, we live in terrible times, that we curse the time that we live in. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La tasubbu ad-dahr." They were Muslim. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to the closest meaning that do not curse time. And in a hadith Qudsi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Inni ana ad-dahr," that indeed I am time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who turns the night into the day and the day into the night, the one who causes time to pass, the one who brings up civilizations and destroys them. But so when we curse time, in reality, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, we are cursing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That time is in the hands of Allah. He doesn't like for us to complain. He wants us to take charge of ourselves. He wants us to ask ourselves, what can I do to cause change? So whether we run into a situation in a masjid where there are severe political issues, people can't decide who's going to be a board member, how many board members there can be, how long someone can be a board member, who's in charge of the board, what is the authority of the board. When we run into a situation where there's a non-profit and those funds are misused, they were appropriated, for example, for refugees, for orphans, and those are misused. Instead of standing on the sidelines and complaining and bickering and backbiting and calling people out, our religion teaches us to jump in, to do something about it. And that if we can't do anything about it, if we have no ability to do anything to change the situation, or if we have no desire to do anything about the situation, then to at least keep quiet, to sit on the sidelines and at least make dua. Because there's no benefit to sitting on the sidelines and adding to the fire. There's no benefit to watching a fight. These are the actions of Hizb al-Shaytan. These are the actions of the army of Shaytan, which we know comes from both the jinn and ins, from mankind. Shaytan loves to see Muslims fighting and bickering, calling the cops on one another, fighting in court against each other. Shaytan and his army love to see this. But that's not what we do. We know that one of the biggest crimes in Islam is to lie, to make a false statement. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curses those who lie. But one of the instances where it is allowed to lie is to bring two people together. Be they spouses, a husband and wife have issues, to bring them together. Be they business partners, they can't get along, bring them together. Be they masjid board members, whoever they may be, it is allowed to lie to bring two people together. To say words that will remove the negativity between people. So let us spend the little time that we have left in this life to create positive change. That when we pass away, we are remembered not for tearing things down, not for driving people apart, but for bringing people together, for building up institutions, for building up masajid. Life is short, and we barely have time to find people, to cultivate love. There's no reason to spend that precious time to cultivate hate. And it's unfortunate that in our community, there is hate, there is mistrust, there is lack of understanding, there is finger pointing. There's so much hate in our community, be it between spouses, children, parents, masajid, organization, whatever it is. Obviously, it's something we need to end, but not just by talking about ending it, but by doing something about it. By starting with ourselves, by asking ourselves, each and every one of us on an individual basis, that what can I do? If there's a problem in the community, what can I do to change it? If there are problems at my masjid, what can I do to solve them? To remove these massive weights that weigh down our community, that keep us from moving forward. You can take the example of having children in the masjid, in the back of the masjid, that make noise. We have two approaches to an issue like this. The first is we can complain. We can ask, why are their kids making noise in the masjid? Where are their parents? Who are their parents? Let's kick them out of the masjid. We don't need children in the masjid. That's one approach. And another approach is to say, subhanallah, they could have been anywhere else. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought them here. No one else brought them here. So let me go buy them some donuts and let me sit down with them and explain to them with love and kindness what is the etiquette of being in the masjid. How do we act when we're in the masjid? That we teach them in a way that they love to come back, rather than hate to come back. Because they are the future of this community. They are the next generation. It's the same way. If no one had ever taught us, if no one had ever instilled within us a love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and a love for His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, none of us would be here today. No one outside is going to ask us, why didn't you go for Salatul Jum'ah? There's no religious police that's going to say, you're not at Jum'ah, let me go arrest you, throw you in jail. That's not the environment that we live in. That's not the culture that we live in. But it is only because we know what the reward is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we come here. And that only happened because someone took the time to teach us. And in the same way, we can take that approach with the children. So we can't control the situation around us, but we can control our response to whatever the situation around us is. And that when we hear bad news in our community, that we should feel that pain. That this is our child that is in this situation, that this is our masjid that is going through this, that this is our sheikh that went through that. That the same way that we cover our own sins, the same way we work to make sure that no one hears anything negative about us, that we do the same, that we extend the same courtesy to our brothers and to our sisters. We learn in the seerah that at all times to look for the positive things in life. To keep an eye on the big picture, to focus on the real deal. To know that if we lose in this life, that the real deal is round two. That what really matters is the life to come. Not all of the companions lived to see the end of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, that time in Medina after Khaybar when all the wealth flowed into Medina. Not all the companions lived to see that. The parents of Ammar radiallahu ta'ala an, Yasir and Sumayya radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, the first martyrs in Islam, they died in Makkah. They weren't around to see the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala come true in that situation, in that time in Makkah. But they knew that what mattered was not what happened here, but that what matters is what our result will be on the Day of Judgment. So So let each one of us be a building block. Let each one of us be a source of positive energy rather than negative energy. Let each one of us be a source of light for our community. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in a hadith Qudsi, Inna Allah azza wa jal qal, Ana 'inda dhanni 'abdi bi, in dhanna bi khayran falahu, wa in dhanna sharran falahu. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in a hadith Qudsi that I am to my servant as he expects of me. That if he expects good of me, then he will find it. But that if he expects evil of me, or that if he expects negativity of me, that he will find that. So let us never lose our conviction and our hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah waliyul ladina amanu. That Allah is the wali of those who believe. Put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be hopeful that things will change. All of the stories of the prophets teach us one thing. To have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala no matter what the conditions may be, no matter what the odds may be. So I'll end with the same hadith that we started with, that even if the hadith is even if the hour is about to strike, even then, don't waste any time. Plant a tree. Let us use every breath that we have left to bring smiles to people's faces, to solve problems, to stop the bickering, to stop the arguing, to stop the fighting, to stop the backbiting. Whatever situation we may be. We may say our masjid doesn't have this problem. But to know that other places have these problems, and that is each one of our own responsibilities to help our brothers and sisters. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who have hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who see the big picture, those who rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who learn from the seerah, those who are able to cry before Him in the middle of the night when no one else is awake. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow each and every one of us to reach the blessed month of Ramadan in a state of health, in a state of iman, where we are able to fast the entire month. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي سيدخلون جهنم داخرين بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعنا وإياكم بالآيات والذكر الحكيم أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات وبارك على محمد وأزواجه وذريته إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. أقيموا الصلاة.